In this video, we're going to discuss how to clone an object in Java. Welcome to automateNow. This is Marco Cruz. Let's dive in. And here we have a class that I've created called CloneMe. We have 4 fields here in this class, and we also have a main method. I went ahead and created a new instance of this class right here, and I've also initialized each of the fields. Now let's suppose that we want to copy this object right here, so that we can get all of this information. And there are 3 ways that we can do this in Java. The first way to do this is called deep copy. And let's see how deep copy works. So with deep copy, we would create a new object. Let's call it object2. It's equal to new clone me. Next, we're going to say object2 dot message is equal to object1 dot message. So what we're doing here is copying one item at a time. So let's duplicate this here. And notice what we did here. We copied one item at a time, like so. The main drawback to this is that this process can be very tedious. In this example, we only have 4 fields, but let's suppose that you had dozens of these fields. So you would have to copy these one at a time here. That's why this process is not very efficient. Let's now take a look at another way of copying or cloning an object. This one is called shallow copy. And the way shallow copy works is that we don't create a new object like we did here. All we say is clone me object2 is equal to object1. And let me comment this out. And notice what we did here. Instead of creating a new object and copying line item by line item, we simply went ahead and created a new reference which points to the same object. The main problem with this approach is shown here. On the left here we have the stack, and on the right we have the heap. And originally we only had one object reference in the stack, and this object reference pointed to the object in the heap. For illustration purposes, we're using this memory location here. That's why we see it listed over here in the stack. Then we went ahead and created a second object reference. But all we did here is to point this reference back to the original object in the heap. That's why we see the same memory location here. Both of these object references contain the same memory location because they both point to the same object on the heap. So it should be pretty clear to you that this is not really copying or cloning an object because we still only have one object. This second object reference did not get a separate copy of the original object. And ideally, this is what we would want to see. Object 1 will point to one object, and object 2 would point to a copy of that object. Notice that the information is the same, but it has been duplicated. We also see that each object resides in different memory locations. So let's take a look at the third approach for cloning an object. Let's go ahead and comment this out. And this time we're going to clone the object. So here we're going to say clone me object2 it's equal to object1 dot clone, this method right here. Now let's take a look at this method right here. I'm going to control click on this. Notice that this method is in the object class. And recall that every class in Java inherits the object class. And that's how we have access to this method here. Let's see what it says about this method. It says that it creates and returns a copy of this object. Let's go back. So we're trying to make a copy of this object1 and assign that copy to object2. But notice that we have an error here. It says unhandled exception. And this is because this method can throw this exception here, clone not supported exception. And we can fix this by adding the exception to the method signature. So let's click this, and we've added this to the signature of the method. Now we still have another error. Let's see what it says. It says that it requires type clone me, and we're providing object. And if we look at this method again, let's control click this. Notice that this returns an object, but we're trying to assign this to a clone me object. So all we need to do here is to cast this right here to clone me. So let's go ahead and hover over this and select cast to clone me, and that should do it. Now let's see what happens when we run this code. And we get an exception. It says clone not supported exception. And this is because Java has a security mechanism that by default does not allow you to copy or clone an object. These type of conditions can lead to security vulnerabilities in your code. That's why Java prevents you from cloning an object by default. So we have to be very explicit in letting Java know that we want to clone an object. And to do that, we have to use an interface in Java called Cloneable. This is a marker interface. If you don't know what a marker interface is, check out the video card above to learn more. So we're going to scroll up here. So next to the class name, we're going to use implements Cloneable. This is the interface that we need to implement in order to be able to clone an object. And by implementing this marker interface, we're letting Java know that we intend to clone an object. So when we call this method right here, clone, on this object, Java will first check to see if we have extended the clonable interface. So by extending this clonable interface, we have given a privilege to this class to be able to clone objects. Let's go ahead and rerun this code and see what happens. And notice that this time we don't get any errors. And just to verify that everything's working properly, let's go ahead and do some print statements. So we're going to say sout object1 dot pi, and then we're going to duplicate this and we're going to say object2 dot pi. So both of these print statements should print the same value. And indeed they do. So just to be clear, if you ever need to clone an object, you can use this deep copy, but keep in mind that this is only a good idea to use when you have a few items to copy. If you have many items, it's not such a good idea. In that case, use the clone method instead. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.